Well, hello.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to If These Walls Could Talk.
With your hosts,
Wendy Stuart.
and Tym Moss.
And thank you all for being with us today. I'm bursting with news.
Yes,
Can
I know what news she
I know
has.
it. So exciting. We were nominated for a Glam Award for this very podcast, If These
Yes.
Walls Could Talk. And let me tell you, there is some stiff competition, pardon the pun,
Absolutely.
out there. But the Glam Awards, for those of you who want to know, is January 29th. And we're all going to have a big table. I mean, which will
it'll be a fun
include
night, yeah.
people that have been on our show, like Felipe Rose, who has a hot new single, Dance Again. The infamous Kobe Cole, whose show
Yeah, Kobe will be
here,
there.
oh my God, was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
As someone who's coming on our show said, he blew the roof off of Pangea that night. It was absolutely amazing. So I have more news. Oh my God.
well,
I'm
do tell.
bursting like I told you. So this whole week is Transgender Week of Remembrance. I have kind of switched it around. I'm calling it Transgender Week of Awareness. Yes, we are remembering, but I think to move forward, we have to become more aware. We have to raise the bar for that. So Thursday night, I will be at Chauncey Dandridge, our producer and DJ at Stonewall. He's doing a wonderful show called Freak Out, and it will be a benefit for Kakuma 13, which for those of you who don't know, and many people don't, in Nairobi, there is an LGBTQ refugee camp, and I will spare the stories. It's very heavy duty.
Right.
Kakuma 13 has, of course, a page on Instagram, and it's important to make everyone aware of their plight over there.
Sure.
Too often, we only think of things in our backyard. So I will be doing Chauncey's show. It's called Freak Out, along with Evan Lawrence, who's a dear friend, and Cecily Williams, and probably other people that we all know each other. It's so incestuous.
It's totally.
And now you have a bunch of things coming.
Oh, yeah. But actually, after the show in Stonewall, everybody can go over to the Q. And Ike Capelli, Vicky Villainous, Jim Silvestri, and I will be judging a drag competition. So
yes,
I've never judged drags. I've been judged by many drags.
I would say so. And
so now turn it out.
Yeah,
okay?
really. No, isn't
We'll
it
see how
great
that
that
goes.
tables are turned? Do you feel like really powerful being able to do that out? Oh my God.
Do.
Tim is owning it. So okay.
Let's get to our
Let's
guest.
get to it. So
amazing guest.
We have an amazing guest today. We have her in the flesh. Yay! Listen, you know how that is for Tim and I to have that warm body next to us, an actual person. Today's guest is the international icon of artistic resistance. That was in her bio. I didn't make it up, but you know what? It's freaking brilliant. I'm going to say it. With a body of work spanning decades, as she internationally impacted both performance art and experimental theater, serving it up to mainstream audiences at the end of the day, of which I first went to one of her very first shows in the early 80s. I don't know what happens. We end up on different paths, and then reconnected with her probably 6-7 years ago. I think she's freaking brilliant.
I agree.
Okay. And we can talk about experimental theater and all of that, but you know what? To me, she is totally and completely the voice of our times.
Absolutely.
Let me introduce to you Penny Arcade.
Yay! We love Penny Arcade.
Slide on in.
Oh, look, I made a dime.
Oh, you did. It was a dime or a penny.
You're prosperous.
I got here and I made a dime.
But right, it's great. You're getting paid for your art. I just love it. Now, you know what they say when you find a coin like that?
No, what?
That it's somebody from up above that's sending you
Oh,
something.
that's nice.
Yeah, it's a sign from up above.
I thought it fell out of Tim's pocket.
It probably did, but you're welcome to it.
Yeah, there we go. We share alike
I put
on
it in
here.
my secret pocket. For
All
good luck.
right.
So-
Make sure it doesn't fall out again.
No, I put it here.
So we're really excited to
I'm
have you come
excited.
here. I want to give you, before we even start, a special thank you because you did something for me during the pandemic. Your live stream that you had from your house.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was about it, but no matter what I was doing, I would tune in for that. I loved not only the people that you interviewed when you did the phone interview, but everything that you had to say. I was feeling very out of it, very disconnected, and I would tune into you and be completely connected. So thank you.
Well, I can understand that because you're an extrovert.
Right.
And
I get it.
And I think for extroverts, the initial,
shock.
Well, the first, 6 months of the lockdown was very, very hard.
Very hard.
Whereas I'm an introvert and it was really easy for me. Like things got just more quiet and I could stay at that pace rather than having to go in and out and in and out.
Right. I needed to be out. When you were broadcasting in front of your computer in your apartment, your level of comfort, you'd have peonies sometimes, your favorite flowers.
Yeah.
See, I took in everything, the colors that were in there. But interesting, you're introverted. You made me feel warm and fuzzy. So
yeah, well,
she's warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, many people don't know that.
Right.
Yeah.
I get that.
Spread the word. Penny Arcade, warm and fuzzy.
She is warm and fuzzy. Well, you are an empath, okay? That comes through in your work. I guess my first question, how the hell do you deal with that when you can take in the emotional stuff of everybody else? How does that impact you?
It's complicated. It's really complicated because I'm really huge.
Yeah.
Emotionally. Like I'm a triple cancer. So, I've got a lot of empathy. And the only time that it's painful for me is when people are evil. And there are a lot, and it's not the evil people that are the worst people.
The narcissists are the worst people.
The people who are, you expect the worst from evil people. But then every once in a while, it's the stupidity, the stupid people. And the great Miss Joni Musi, when I was 47, that's a while now, she said to me, I said, I just thought everybody's equally smart. I don't accept that, And she'd say, Penny, that's not true. And I'd say, yes, it is. I'm a non-elitist, so everybody's smart. And she said to me one day, she said, Penny, if you're in a room of 200 people, there's probably 2 people in that room that you can talk to on your own level.
Insightful. She's exactly right.
But I didn't believe that. So what I spent most of and some of you may be listening, might be people who experience this with me, is until just a few years ago, I would try to drag people up to the level that I was thinking at. And people don't like that.
They can resist.
I can't believe that you, with the amount of work you've created and on so many levels, that you would think that you could. That is amazing for me to learn that about you today. Why do you think you didn't realize that?
Because I'm really friendly.
Right.
And
trusting.
I think, I really, really wished that people would have done that for me, it's so who I am is really complicated.
Yeah.
That's why it's very complicated writing my memoir.
Oh, wow.
Because I did not start out being who I am today.
Right.
And I'm very clear about that when I meet people, that especially, younger people, they're not who they're going to be.
Right.
But you don't just become. You've got to nourish, you've got to nurture.
Well, and experience certain things along your life path
Right.
that helps to create who you will become.
Right, exactly.
Right. Well, also, I came up with people who kicked your ass, and of course that culture has changed. People want to be coddled.
Right.
And they want to be respected.
And everybody's a winner.
And nobody can get offended.
Right.
Right.
So, everybody knows all these things now. It's known, but it's not changing, because there are commiserators in the world. And the commiserator to me is the lowest form on the planet. That's the person who will just get there with a negative idea that someone else is under the influence of and just grind it into them and like, yeah, that's really negative, like really push it in. And it's really funny because somebody told me a few days ago that someone was doing a writing thing on Facebook or somewhere, and they said something about Penny Arcade, and then one person said, "Oh, I can't stand her."
Ugh.
And then the other person said, "Why?" And then that person wrote, "Oh, she never stops talking about AIDS."
That's the sum total that somebody got. I mean, what do you say to that?
But it's really interesting.
Ugh.
So it made me really think about it. I was just interviewing Jean Fedorko.
I love Jean.
We love Jean.
Fabulous.
And I go back to 1981 with Jean when he and Jim Farrat started HEAL, which was one of the first AIDS organizations. I think really.
It was one of the first. We had Powers, Pet Owners with AIDS Resource Service.
Right.
HEAL was one of the first ones. I didn't realize, by the way, that Jean and Jim were the people that started it.
Yeah,
so
they
thank you.
started it. And I was talking to Jean about it. And I had just been talking to his roommate, who's a young guy, 28, 29 years old, straight, which of course I knew immediately. And
Gaydar.
And the kid was like saying to me, well, what's so different about New York now? And I'm like, everything is different. Everything is different. And I told him this story about the person saying, "Oh, Penny Arcade just can never stop talking about AIDS." And I was talking to Jean about it, and I said, it's so funny that somebody would say that, because would you say that to somebody who'd been in a concentration camp?
You never stop talking about that.
They never stop talking about being in the concentration camp.
They all want to talk about it. I mean, exactly.
Or somebody who had lived through World War II and was bombed.
Right, people who've lived through trauma.
But
Right.
but the other side of the coin is you are a public figure. You are, and that positions you ready for other people to attack. They can attack any part of you, your work, or anything that you believe in. So that kind of comes with the turf. And I was going to ask you, how do you deal with that?
Well, it's funny. It's funny because the great Bobby Beers, who many people don't know, but who was just one of the most amazing gay men who have ever lived. I had complained to him in the 80s that all these people hated me. And he said to me, he said, "Oh, for heaven's sakes, Arcade, how do you possibly figure that you could accomplish anything without having people hate you?" And I didn't really understand that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't really understand that people, because people are stupid. Okay. Because they don't understand.
Like, sum total of what we found out here so far. People are stupid.
But the thing is, you know what? You can be stupid, and you can find out you're stupid, and you can get less stupid.
Right.
It's okay.
It's a goal.
If you want to, right?
Yeah. But I think a lot of people are really lazy in those kind of ways, and people tend to go with the shiny.
There you go. That's why you found that dime sitting there
with the person who's winning. And I think a lot of people don't realize that that for some people, certain periods of time will be a cherished memory of when they were young. They're not going to, there's so many people around the club scene in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s who aren't around anymore.
Right.
And I don't know.
But okay, I look at someone like you, right? It literally, when I joined your Patreon account, which I found out about on your live stream, and a portion of that benefits PANGEA,
right,
where we're broadcasting from today. I thought that was brilliant. But the amount of work on there, I mean, I had no idea. Now I knew who you were. I've seen your shows and everything, but I think it's really important to get the huge body of work. You never stop working as an artist. You never stop creating.
And I didn't start out like that, people. I didn't start out like that. I started out doing it with nothing.
Right, you're tiny. You're like what, 5'2" or something?
No,
like,
was there a point? Was there a point in your life where you kind of shifted the direction into, because you're so socially aware of what is going on in our society? Was there a point where you kind of shifted your art over into that direction?
Yeah. I mean, I think it has a lot to do with being an outsider. So of course an outsider is always going to be looking, at the world, and that you're never part of it, And the thing is that, growing up in the gay world the way I did, I was an insider in a world of outsiders. And
Mhm.
then post 90s, I'm an outsider in a world of insiders.
Mhm.
You know, C.A. Conrad, the great poet, wrote me and said that he was writing this piece for the for the Poetry Foundation about his coming out. And he said he was going to make it really graphic, and he was dedicating it to me.
Wow.
He said, I'm dedicating it to you, Penny, because you've always been such an ally to the LGBT community. And I wrote him, I said, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm not a fucking ally. I'm not an ally.
You go, girl.
Ally?
You didn't like the word ally?
No, what I don't like is
I don't like that word.
what
either.
I don't no, it's not that I don't like the word. The thing is, you know, I am not a tourist.
Right.
I am not a tourist in the LGBT world.
You're not an outsider looking in.
I have been in, that is my world. I'm a bisexual fag hag. And though we know that bisexuals are still considered dirt in the LGBT world, let us talk about that.
That's a whole other conversation.
Half a second.
Right.
You know, you love putting the B in there. You know, all those benefits I did for the LGBT Center, I always thought that I was raising money to put the F in for fag hag.
Right.
Yes.
I love it. LGBTQ plus F. And I totally connect with you on the ally thing.
Well, it'd be
it's the same thing, like from the get-go, from the time I was 20, and it wasn't just me jumping on a bandwagon. I've been
there was no bandwagon,
right?
when
We
you
were
were
just
20.
there, but when someone turns around and says you're such an ally to the
especially
community,
when they're 30,
right?
Mhm.
I'm
You
like,
know?
no, you don't know who I am. Please don't use that word for me. I have total respect for allies. I have amazing
Of
friends that are
course.
And
allies, but
appreciative,
it's not the same thing.
Right.
no, but once again, it's somebody foisting an identity
Right.
on you
Yeah.
that is
You
not
hit the nail on the
Identity,
head.
that
a
is
label.
a label and an identity. And you know, I put something on my Facebook a couple of weeks ago where I said, stop telling me to stay in my lane on a road that I helped cut out of the jungle.
Thank you. Yes.
Right.
You know, so
Yes.
I think one of the things
It
that's really
nails that.
problematic, and this gets into real politics now,
It's okay, go for it.
which is that this whole woke social justice thing that's going on, many smart people, smarter than me, are looking at it and saying, what is this? Because it's distracting everybody from the real political and social problems that are going on in America right now.
Right.
There's a real issue here. If this was 1970 and this woke movement started up in the gay world, we'd be saying CIA,
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
infiltrators. Who are these people who are, you know, taking the focus off the real issues? And you know, I don't know, like I have so many issues. I'm going to say it right now. Like one of my biggest issues is the fact that Marsha P. Johnson, who was like a really close friend of mine, has been made into this trans person and trans woman. Marsha P. Johnson was not trans. Marsha was a queen.
Yeah.
You know, and
they made her into a trans icon is exactly what
they made her
happened.
into a trans icon. They made her be the person who started the Stonewall riot, which was not true. It was a dyke, probably Stormy, threw the first punch. And it's just really depressing because all we had as LGBT people throughout history, all we had was our history. And that was a history that was handed down verbally from generation to generation.
It's an oral history.
It's an oral history, and it was extremely important. And you really felt that you were trusted with this history. And now it's being rewritten by people who are, you know, like, you know, every time I see somebody 26 explaining the Stonewall riot,
God.
I'm like, so what's up here? Is somebody who's in their 70s who was actually there, like we're not photo ready or something, you know? But the whole point all along was about inclusion. And I've done many interviews with many people who are my age and older, and gay men, and they all say the same thing I say. The gay world that I grew up in the 60s had heterosexuals in it. Hate to break this news to you. Heterosexuals were in the gay world. They chose to be there. You didn't have to be a card-carrying fag
bottom
or dyke,
or top.
You know, nobody cared what your sexual orientation was.
Mhm.
That was the focus of gay rights, was to make it so your sexual orientation didn't matter.
Mhm.
And now it's, super identity. And
Absolutely.
also, hate to say this, but if they overturn Roe versus Wade,
There you go.
They
right.
overturn Roe versus Wade. Bye-bye to LGBT
Yep.
rights.
Right.
Bye-bye to
Absolutely.
gay marriage.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Absolutely.
And then you tell me if the biggest problem we've been facing is pronouns.
Exactly.
Whoa,
Thank
she just
you.
okay. She just read. So
I love her.
I help with an LGBTQ center
Mm.
for the tri-state area. I also have a show called Triversity Talk.
Right.
I deal with these things all the time. So let's talk about this. All right, the pronouns, the polarization that I feel.
Mhm.
Last night I did a panel of really incredible transgender women.
Mhm.
Okay. The deal is the T's feel completely left out. They feel that the G's and the L's just don't care about them at all. How do we take the history, right? You've got the history. We've all got the history.
Mhm.
How do we carry that forward
Because
to get a
people-
message
Because
out
people
there?
don't care about the history. What they care about is
Like-
their identity.
Right
It's
now
a-
at this minute.
Their
Right.
identity.
Which
like,
in 3 years
like-
could be different.
Right.
Right, absolutely. But it's
Mhm.
the idea that nobody was doing anything about racism.
Right.
Nobody was doing
Mhm.
anything about trans rights. Nobody was doing anything about gay rights till about 2 years ago when
Mhm.
they got involved. And it's really problematic because, you've seen Bitch Dyke Fag Hag
Yeah.
Whore, my Sex
Mhm.
and Censorship show. The whole premise of that show was about coalition, because the right wing has no trouble forming coalitions with as many hate groups as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is not new. This was going on in the 70s and in the 80s, like where radical feminist dykes were becoming, bedfellows with fundamentalist Hasidim,
Right.
Mhm.
who none of them liked pornography. So they were all on the same page. The need for coalition means being able to communicate with people who you don't agree with everything on.
Mhm.
And right now it's so black and white.
Yep,
And
it's
Absolutely.
very
and it's-
polarized.
and
I
it's,
agree.
and it's so super stupid. And once again, this focus on language and this focus on controlling language is really, 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 really dangerous.
So what do you think? I mean, as somebody that's been so pivotal in everything that's gone on, you have the history. How do you affect it? I mean, is it possible? I'm going to ask you to affect
don't-
this way of thinking.
I don't
Or do we
think-
just throw our hands up?
No, I think you can only do it on a one-to-one basis.
Individual basis.
Because what has happened is they have successfully broken down the intergenerational connection between people. When
Mhm.
you hear the word gay community only means one thing. It means older gay people helping younger gay people.
Yep.
That's what gay community doesn't mean anything else.
Mhm.
Because you didn't used to come out to your mother
Right.
or your father. You used to come out to an older gay person who kind of gave you an orientation and helped you, to find your way. I mean, I tell everybody, I was taken in when I was 17 by Jamie Andrews, who lived in a
Remember the story.
one-room studio apartment on 9th Street. I mean, I put such a crimp in this guy's social life.
Mhm.
Wild child.
I mean, he was 27 years old.
Right.
And I say now, you want to talk to me about gay community? You show me the 27-year-old guy
Who takes
taking
it?
a
Who would
seven-
take it?
17-year-old
take
girl.
a 17-year-old
Yeah.
girl in off the street,
Absolutely.
But then people knew that they, because we were rejected by our families for being queer, and we, had to have those relationships, with people, many who were older than us. I
Mhm.
mean, and I have always had, because of what people did for me, I've always tried to extend that to younger
You
people.
pay it forward. You certainly
except,
do.
Except the way that I came up wasn't by people kissing my ass. It was by people nailing me and
On your
confronting
shed. Yeah.
confronting
Mhm,
me.
mhm.
I was raised by the meanest queens in New York, and so, it's all very, very, very different.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that when Jack Smith was dying, Jack Smith, the great Jack Smith, considered the father of performance art. Jack Smith of Flaming Creatures, the first movie that had drag in it.
Wow.
That influenced John Waters and influenced Federico Fellini and influenced all these people. And when Jack was dying of AIDS, I said, but Jack, I said, you influenced so many people. And Jack said, but they were never influenced. And I was like, I said, well, what? I said, but you did influence me. He goes, I never intended to create a race of prostitute drag queens.
And girls just trying to earn a buck, really.
And I didn't know what he meant. But what he wasn't talking about drag queens who were sex workers. He was talking about, he could see into the future. And he was talking about, when I was coming up, the drag queens who I knew, they lived in drag.
Right.
Or they did drag a lot, but they mainly lived in drag.
Right.
He was talking about people who do drag on Saturday and Sunday for drag bingo, and they're in drag from 8 p.m. till midnight. That's what he was talking about.
Right.
Like what he was talking about at the time.
Weekend drag.
Was Lucky Cheng's,
Right.
Yes.
which was
Right.
across the
Lips,
street
yeah.
from him. So one of the things that I understood, and we understand this when we know people who are older than us, is that people who are older than us save us time. So things that he said to me when I was 30 and he was 51, I was, for years I was like, how did he know that? Then I got to be 51. I go, oh,
That's it.
the higher up the hill you get, the more you can see,
Right.
Yeah.
And then
Well put.
That's
when
great.
when you're at the top of the hill, then you're going over the hill.
Yeah.
So he talked about how he influenced. How do you think you're influencing?
Well, I've been influencing people for a very long time because of my work, because
Of course.
of the quality of the work.
Let's roll that into now, though, okay? Because we're talking about how hard it is and how polarized it is, and people aren't listening. All right, I'm talking specifically for now.
I know, but I can just tell you point blank. People will never acknowledge anybody. Look, I'm the first person who did a neo-performance burlesque strip in Bitch Dyke Fag Hag Horror in 1990. I stripped to Lenny Bruce's rap on obscenity, played by the Worcester Group's famous actor, Ron Water. And everywhere that we toured that show, we hired strippers. And there were many, many strippers all over the world, in Australia particularly, who, working with me was the first time they didn't have to cover their tattoos up, first time they didn't have to wear a wig to cover their dreads, and we always had, gay, straight, trans, we had every kind of person dancing with us. So we left this international burlesque movement in our wake. But even people who love me and who, worked with me and who are some of the burlesque stars of today, it's not like they're going around going, Penny Arcade was the first person who brought pole dancing to New York. Penny Arcade was the first person, who said that, stripping, was a feminist act. People don't acknowledge. And I had a Reichian doctor, a shrink. When I complained to him about this, he said, people don't take care of their parents. They take care of their children. And that,
well put. Yeah, that is really well put.
And that was very interesting to me because I'm the opposite. Because even Steve Zettner, my longtime collaborator, the great Steve Zettner, Steve has said to me many times, he goes, Penny, I don't get it. He goes, you're out there always acknowledging the people who influenced you.
You do all the time.
Yeah.
Most of them have been dead for like 30 years. You're still out there flogging them because I'm surrounded by dead people who want one thing: publicity.
Even in their grave, they want publicity.
I love it.
Right,
yeah,
right.
and Steve says, how can it be that, all these people saw you promote, all these people who came before you, he goes, and people don't promote you. And I said, that's just what happened because the market crept in to entertainment. But at the same time, people don't know. I mean, burlesque is great, but it's the after party.
Right.
It's, it is artistic and it is an entertainment form, but I don't think anybody's going to be asking people in 25 years to see their retrospective of their burlesque career. Well, maybe on film. Maybe everybody will be showing their
film.
Maybe they'll be showing the pictures of when they were young.
But don't you think with everything you've done, okay, there were people like me out there that were so affected by what you had to say. And I find you, don't hate me for this, you're so goddamn mainstream in terms of what, like, your realizations and the truths that you speak are totally and completely now. And I can bring 30 women that may not have known you in the 80s, but if they heard you speak now, they would be like, oh my God.
Well, I don't have any problem about the fact that I'm mainstream. I think I think my work is very commercial, and I think that my work is very mainstream, and I know it is because I go around the world where people shouldn't be interested,
and they're completely
interested, and they're interested,
and can connect with what you're saying.
Yeah,
totally. But the thing is also interesting to me is that something went on in the 80s where, in a way, the wheel of progress stopped, because by all rights, all the people who know Sandra Bernhardt's work should know mine.
Absolutely, I
all
totally
the people
agree.
Who know Margaret Cho's work should be interested in mine. But they don't know about me. You know what I mean? So it's a very, and really, believe me, I'm making a study of it because.
No, you totally should, because I want to know. Right?
I would say one thing that I've heard you speak on before is consumerism.
Right.
Is it's about dollars and cents.
Well, you have to pander. Do you know what I mean? You have to pander. I mean, those years when I did, I hosted Pussy Faggot, the nightclub, and Unisex. And I'd get up there and I would tell the truth. Now, remember we're talking about the stupid people? Yeah, well, there's a lot of stupid people, and then there's a few really smart people. And it has nothing to do with education, has nothing to do with your family, has nothing to do with any of those things. Well, I didn't pander, So pandering's very important, if you want to be, to have a wider appeal,
right, and
audience,
acceptance. And you know what I say to that, and Tim agrees, that is bullshit. Okay, we all need, now, what do I believe about this time where we're at right now? We just finished a 20-month shit show. Okay, the world changed. I feel now it is open. All right, and it's now time for all of us to support each other and get each other's work out there.
Yeah, but we're in a very, very, very we're in a crisis, wishing it would go back to being an emergency.
It's not. It's not. We're in a new world.
Well, the thing is that, with artificial intelligence and with algorithms and all of these things,
we're all replaced.
The fact is that we're all marginalized. The thing is that what we need to do is to treat the internet as a tool. People would say to me, like younger people, like, oh, you're that generation, you're a boomer. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm born in 1950. I'm not a boomer. Okay. I'm not your mother.
Right.
I'm not your grandmother. I didn't have 1.2 kids and, live in the suburbs. Okay. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that I'm somebody who, I was one of the first people online. I was online in 1993. I've always loved the internet. I love television. I love radio. I love all means of communication. But people are living on the internet. Right. They're not using it as a tool.
Right.
And there is so much disinformation.
Yeah.
And the inability, it's just like everybody, like Fran Lebowitz talked about.
I love Fran Lebowitz.
Yeah, we
brilliant.
Fran Lebowitz is the male Penny Arcade.
Just love her.
And she talked about what was happening to all these photos that everybody's taking. Like everybody's taking millions of photos. Like, right. We're inundated. Right. With stuff. Everybody's making videos. Everybody's on TikTok. Everybody's on Instagram. Everybody's an influencer. Everybody's a this, is a that, is a that. And I think that, I'm glad that I'm a 20th century fox, 20th century where you had a chance, to see what you were drawn to, because now it's so totally, it's exhaustive, isn't it?
I think
Yeah.
Tim and I talk about that all the time. I find the amount of stuff when you're an entertainer that you have to get out there. And it doesn't matter how many mediums you're on, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Tim, I see your tweets. I see I see all this stuff. All right. And then God forbid, we got to jump on TikTok on top of it.
Yeah.
Where does it
I love TikTok.
I like to watch it, but for personal, right? Where the fuck does it end? Where does it end?
Well, I mean, the thing is, that's why this was what was so cruel and horrible about the pandemic lockdown, which, and I can't remember if you came to the last show I did at PANGEA, which was
I was at the last show here.
Right. So that was
right over there.
That was called Front Row Seat at the Apocalypse, right? And that was like, hey, we're so lucky we're in this room. Unbeknownst, who knew that like 2 weeks later that would be over forever?
Right.
So I think a lot of us knew that the answer was to be back together in person and to use the tools of the internet to be able to bring people who aren't able to attend in person to be part of it. I love live streaming. I love all of that stuff. But I think that we're not doing ourselves any favors if we don't take a really hard look at what's going on in the world right now, what's going on in America, what's going on in New York. I mean, honestly, please, you really want to tell me the only two choices for mayor of New York were Eric Adams
I know.
and Curtis Sliwa?
Right.
Like,
Right.
That's not
out of 10 million people.
That's the best they could come up with. Right.
Right. So there's something wrong. Right. There's something really
Well, yeah, there's something. Okay, let's talk about
again,
the fact.
a statement to
And
our
again, I love your
society.
shirt.
I was going to mention that too.
I'll
Can
stand
you
up.
stand up for? Yeah.
Still in love with NYC.
Okay, I could not live anywhere else, not even LA, but our city is so completely broken right now. You'd have to be blind not to see it. I'm in the subways again, as Tim is, as I'm sure you are. Broken. And now we're there with face masks. And yesterday I crammed into a car because the subways are 10 minutes apart and it's rush hour. And the sirens outside my window, I don't know if you all have experiences.
Yep.
It is like all the time. When does it end, and how much can a human being's psyche take of this?
But something is like...
Something's like what?
Something's like really, really... I mean, people are not talking about it. I mean, people are talking about it, in that the streets are super dangerous.
Yes. Thank you.
People are starving. People are suffering.
They're laying on the street like Calcutta. It looks like
many I don't think are getting the proper medications that they need.
Or anything, or food. And here's the thing.
Cares.
This is why, I had issues with the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, I understand that it's a political movement and not a social movement, although the people who support it think it's a social movement, right? Because you're being asked to confront your inner racism every 6 seconds, even though you're somebody who has always been working against racism, like for 50 years, right? And I keep saying, I see indigent Black people in the subway. Some of the people stepping over the people.
They do. That's exactly right.
Some of them are racist. And you know what? Some of the people stepping over the indigent Black people laying on the ground in the subway are Black Lives Matter activists.
Right.
So,
okay, you're an empath. How do you make them care? If you were going to, how do you make people like that care?
The thing is, I put myself out as a lightning bolt right now on this show saying this because it's not 1890. We don't have we don't have Mother Cabrini. We don't have those kinds of social organizations who fed people, who gave people clothes, I mean, I like to carry like a few pairs of clean socks, new socks.
It's really great.
And you hand them out, I buy food for people, I give out I have my own budget of the money I give out. You can't give people But the thing is, these new people are in New York. They don't understand that this is a city. Okay.
Right.
And cities have beggars. Yes. That's how a city is. You know, you have glamour. It's like a parfait. You know, you have the rich bankers and the oligarchs. Then you have like kind of the fashion people. Then you have like the nondescript glamour, you know. Then you have like working people. Then you have people who are kind of interested but don't have any money. And then you have like people who don't really know anything and don't care. And then you have people who are just very poor. And then you have people who are really indigent and are beggars, right? And in that city, because you're part of a city, you live in a city, you give alms. You give a little bit of money every day to different people. That way they don't hit you in the head with a brick, right? Because you speak to them. You know, if you don't have
a human being,
as a human being, you don't have money on you, like, you know, you just have 20s in your bag. Oh shit, I only have 20s. I can't really afford to give away a 20, or can I afford to give a 20? Huh? I have to confront myself with that. Can I can give a 5. I can give a 5. I can blow somebody's mind and give them a 10. You know, somebody who's homeless, $10
what it would mean to them.
$10 means they can get coffee, they can get something to eat, and they have a little bit of money for tomorrow. But these new people who are in the city won't even give a dime. They won't give anything. They won't give anything.
But okay, we're talking about now an awareness that you have. We came up in the city. They don't have that.
I know, but this is why we say this publicly. Because what has happened is the orientation stopped. You know, you're from the 5 boroughs.
Right.
Where are you from?
Bronx.
I'm originally from Indiana.
I've been here since the 70s.
Yeah, I've been here 40 years.
All right. So you know that when you first came to New York, people used to tell you things. They used to say, hey, listen, if somebody tries to mug you, throw your wallet in that direction. Say, I don't want any trouble.
Street smart.
I would always have my mugger money in my wallet. I'd always have a 20.
From the Midwest was ready for the mugger.
But people told you what to do.
Right.
That orientation is not existing. That's how that girl, you know, whatever it was 10 years ago, got shot with a 357 Magnum when she had just come from Seattle, because kid is like holding a 357 Magnum 2 feet from her, and she goes, what are you going to do? Shoot me? And he shot her because she thought that she understood Black people because she watched hip hop on MTV.
Right.
You know, but the thing is, that orientation is not happening. And that whole idea of that you were in New York and you were building your way up to a kind of connoisseurship of the city, to be a real New Yorker.
Yeah, to be a New Yorker really meant something.
It really meant something. So right now what we have is like 2 or 3 generations of people, like whether they're my age, which is 70, or somebody who's in their 40s now, who's just spent the past 20 years, you know, really becoming a New Yorker. All of that is now worthless. It's just all thrown out the window because New York has been invaded by America.
Right.
And the people who are here, they don't know where they are. They have no idea where they are.
But can I give you the other side of the coin? Because I'm little Mary Sunshine. I will always find the other side of the coin.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's talk about the kids that still come here that are in the arts. I'm not talking about the self-entitled kids. There's always going to be the ones that come here that are going to be the next wave of the New Yorkers that are like us, and talking about the awareness you're talking about. Your big issue here, and I strongly believe this, you cannot, I point to the housing, you cannot have apartments starting at 3.1 million. That eliminates a ton of people. But that's got to change.
Yeah, but that's not going to change because New York is finite. It's an island, right? And the boroughs, okay, I don't know. All I know is that everything all over the world, this is not just a New York problem.
Absolutely.
Or an American problem.
Absolutely.
It's an international problem. My village, Picerno, in the mountains of
building high rises. Don't tell me that.
No, they're not building high rises, but an apartment, to buy an apartment is 250,000 euros.
God.
So, you know,
Right,
look
in
at
a
this
little
hair.
village.
This hair is in my eye.
No, you can't tell. We're all well lit here. Thank you, Alan Kaplan, by the way, for the lighting. This is for you're flawless. You're going to
Yeah.
see this. You're
Absolutely
going to love
gorgeous.
it.
Well, I know my hair. I love my hair color in this light.
I love the hair color. Is
Yeah,
absolutely
it's
gorgeous.
Andy Warhol platinum.
I love it. Do we
but-
want to give a shout out to the hair colorist?
Oh, it was Nellie. Nellie did this color, and Nellie is on Clinton Street on the Lower East Side.
Gorgeous.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and you know you could go there and get your hair done there.
There you go. I love giving shout outs.
Dominican. But what I'm
Yeah.
just saying is that this problem is not going to roll back anytime soon. You know, at 9/11, I truly believed that on 9/12, everybody was going to leave New York, and New York was going to be the way it was
Mhm.
before.
And it didn't
And instead,
happen, right.
zillions of people moved in,
Yeah.
right? And the prices went up.
Right. Pandemic too. A whole my
Yeah.
building emptied out. 50% of the people emptied out. Well, the new people came in. What are you going to do?
Oh, I want to look at your questions.
Oh, they're not. I just make
I
notes.
like
All right.
How do you define yourself?
Yeah, that was I was saving that one to the end because that's actually from me.
Well,
And I wanted
firstly-
you to define fag hag because I got kicked off of Facebook
Oh yeah.
for referring to myself as a fag
Well,
hag.
Firstly,
Yes.
before that, I just want to do a little
Yes.
break
Yeah,
as
we
far as
break.
Yeah.
I don't even know what
your
time
what.
it
Thank
is.
you very much for tuning in to If These Walls Could Talk with your host Wendy Stuart and Tym Moss and our amazing guest, the fabulous Penny Arcade. And I have
Great
not even said a
conversation.
thing.
I know.
love
It's like
I love to
great.
hear you share your wisdom and
we're
your
blessed.
observations.
Non-stop,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
I love this so much. So now,
and so
fag hag-
I just make funny little notes because I can't see anything on there. So I wanted to find out at this point in your life because a number of
Oh, the
times
fag
when
hag. Yeah.
right, the fag hag. Let's
Okay.
talk about fag
Okay,
hag.
so what
that I
happened?
got thrown off of
So
Facebook.
I'll give you my brief fag hag
Yeah.
history. So when I was 15, I was in this Catholic reform school, and after I was there for like 6 months, I got to go home like for a day and then for a week. And then I met this gay guy in my hometown, Larry Biscayno. So Larry and Aggie, who was this queen, they would come and pick me up, and when I would come home on these weekends once a month, and they'd take me to this gay bar in Hartford,
I
Connecticut.
look from reform school to a gay
Yeah.
bar. It's a whole other thing.
And so because I'm immigrant Italian, so English. Oh,
That's
That's
their
well,
phone just
yeah,
rings.
nothing we can
we
do.
we have
no,
reality
they picked
here.
up. Oh, they didn't pick up. So okay, we'll go over the phone.
Yeah.
So I would go to this gay bar, and because Italian was my first language, so I picked up gay patois, so I could outdish anybody. I mean, I could
Genius.
read people to filth. And one day I was in this gay bar with Larry and Aggie, and I was, ranting away. I mean, you see how much I talk now. Can you imagine me at like 15? So some gay man standing by here goes, what is she supposed to be? And I turned and I said, I'm a fag hag.
Yeah.
And Larry and Aggie fell on me and went, no, she's not. No, she doesn't understand. You're not. No, you're not. Fag hags are horrible. You're not a fag hag. You're not a fag. She doesn't know what it means. And I said, yes, I'm a fag hag. This is what a fag hag is.
Right.
And so I
represent fag hags
so
everywhere.
I
Good
took
for
this
you.
on as an identity because, and that's why I understand younger people. All younger people want an identity.
Of course.
But you in wanting that identity, you have to have some kind of an inquiry into what does it really mean.
Right.
Like, so then what happened was when we were doing Bitch Dyke Fag Hag Whore, Steve, who is like has 60% heterosexual genes. So he's a straight man
Right.
who is very influenced by LGBT values and always has been. So
He's a wonderful, creative, sensitive.
he's an amazing
Mhm.
human
Yeah.
being. And
yeah.
and he said to me when I was writing, when I was doing bitch, all my work is done improvisationally in front of an audience. So I had this fag hag monologue. So he says to me one day, he's trying to make the show better, being a dramaturg. And he goes, well, what is a fag hag? And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. I said, I really can't get into this. And he's like, no, he goes, no, explain to me, what is a fag hag? I said, Fag hags are like certain Christians who hid Jews in their attics during the Holocaust.
Whoa.
Oh.
And, the reality is that, fag hags have for millennia had that relationship. Many fag hags and many gay men and lesbians and dyke mics, their most profound relationships can be with each other.
Right.
And that's real. That's a real thing, and
to me, it doesn't have a bad connotation, even a little
No.
bit. I was pissed that I got thrown off of Facebook, and I wanted in your intro on Facebook promoting you, I wanted to write from bitch, dyke, fag, hag, whore.
Right.
I was afraid to write it because
right.
here we go with censorship.
Yeah.
I'd end up in Facebook jail.
I know, but this is the
because of I wrote
is
that.
the problem. If there's any of you young people, you're currently in university or you've just gotten out of university, and you think that your job is to go around policing the language, you are a problem. Let me explain why you're a problem.
Go.
All right. I'm going to explain why you're a problem.
We're here.
Because you are following a trend. And it's a trend that you don't know where that trend is coming from. So what does it mean? So it means that in 1990, bitch, dyke, fag, hag, whore, those words were considered wildly brave. That was brave to be able to be out that way.
Say it.
And say what you were. Now, many of you are turning that into hate language. That's hate language. So the problem is that you are probably not going to feel the way you feel right now in 3 to 10 years. But by that time, the damage to our freedom will have been profound. And I'm telling you, there is going to be a generation out there that is going to be viewed with scorn and pity and anger 25 years from now, because you will be the people who have ushered in totalitarianism.
Yep.
Sticks and stones can break my bones. Names will never hurt me. It's I don't know what to do with it, because it's so, I've been fighting this since 2000.
Right.
All of it since 2000. And it's just gone from strength to strength to strength, which is why so many people are starting to look at the woke movement and the so-called social justice movement and wondering if there is some kind of infiltration from the right wing that is
very good point,
is derailing what was a very progressive movement.
So how do you take young people, right, that you just spoke there and said what's the solution?
I do
how do
that.
you get in there? I know. No,
I just do that. I just say that.
But how do you get them to listen?
I don't, it's not my problem whether they listen or not.
But
you just
it's not my problem. There were people that I listened to when I was young.
That's what I was going to say, when you were young.
And I've got to tell you, there are people I didn't listen to.
Right.
And nothing is more unpleasant than being 71 years old and realizing that somebody came to you when you were 30 and had something to say to you that you weren't interested in. You have to live with that.
How much of you who is Penny Arcade at 71 has taken the things that people have said to you? What percentage would you say is part of your realization?
About myself, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Ding.
My life's been really hard. I've gone through a lot of very hard things. Yeah. There's been a lot of tragedy in my life, starting when I was very, very young.
Well, that was one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, was your father.
Oh, my father.
Starting with your father. Because that would have changed your entire trajectory of your life.
Yeah. Well,
and absorbing information.
And also so interesting in that, you guys don't know this. He knows a little bit about it. So when I was young, and my father disappeared out of my life when I was 3.5 and went into a mental hospital. And I was told my entire childhood that my father was criminally insane. My entire life.
Wow.
That my father was criminally insane. Then when my mother was dying, when I was 51, she started saying, I could have let him out, but I didn't let him out. And I was like, what? I said, no, you must have Alzheimer's because, he was criminally insane. It's not up to you. After my mother died, I learned that she had put my father into this mental hospital, that he was bipolar, that he was like on a jag,
that
and
he wasn't treated.
Well, wasn't there
My
with
God.
Ellis Islands?
well, no, that started at Ellis Island. Well,
Yeah.
no, but
Yeah.
my father was like a very charismatic, wild man, and he had jumped ship. He had jumped ship in Panama and then got on a banana boat, and then like a mile from Tallahassee, swam to shore and got turned in by the guy who was supposed to go with him,
Wow.
who was
What a
afraid.
story.
And then my
So
father's,
he was quite the adventurer
yes,
too.
he was. Well, our last name is Ventura, which means
Mhm.
adventure.
Susana Ventura.
Yeah, I was saving it for when I did something good. Unfortunately, it took so long. I got stuck with Penny Arcade. But at any rate, it's very funny because I'm very in touch metaphysically with my father now, and which is a really kind of an amazing thing. And I think about that a lot. Like, who would I have been? My father
Right.
spoke 12 languages.
Wow.
He like hung out in gay bars. He was this very, very eclectic person.
And amazing that you know that about him.
Oh yeah, well
What a
I
gift.
And you have a lot
Yeah.
of his
Yeah.
characteristics.
yeah, and I
you
do.
inherited.
Yeah, I did. And but it's interesting because I based my early life on all this negativity that I was fed about my
Wow.
father, which I was a child, so you can't say like, oh well, you should have like,
Oh my
tried.
God, you believed what they told you.
Of
A kid, that's
course.
a kid does that.
Yeah, but then I followed through on that because my thing was like, oh, you think he was bad? I'm gonna grow up to be bad. Well, wait, just watch.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
can top that badness.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. But
Bad reputation. Her
yeah,
book.
bad reputation, but not with good people.
Mhm.
And anyway, the thing is interesting is that after my father died, actually before my father died, because I went to Italy when I was 34 in 1984 and met my father's three sisters.
Oh,
That was your very
wow.
first time?
Yeah, in 84. And the thing was that I spoke dialect and they're Northern Italian. So my Italian wasn't that good. But I also had a lot of resistance in them talking about my father because I didn't want to betray my mother, and I knew
Interesting.
it. But you know how people who are listening, how something's going on and you get this kind of feeling like that you're not really facing something,
Mhm.
but you have a good reason not to face it. That's what I was doing. So, but I found out all this stuff about my father, that he had worked for the resistance in
Wow.
So much of you,
Savona. He had worked for the
Wow.
resistance, and he had like hid penicillin in his brother-in-law's house, who was the prefect of police of Savona and who was like a Mussolini follower.
Wow.
And even that man who I met, when he talked about my father, just started laughing and said, well, your father was like so charismatic, it's really hard to stay mad at him, But it's, life is so short and we all have these secrets, and there are all these many, many
Exactly.
secrets in our families.
But that is a reality that you had that changed.
Yes.
But part of the way through your life,
Right.
which
Not
which,
part of the way.
which
When I was-
is your identity.
Right. Well,
You know.
was when I was 56 is when I started to find out.
That's what I'm saying.
At
Yeah.
least though, right? At least you found it out.
Well, my friend Marie Cardinal.
I was going to refer to Marie's
Yeah.
book, Discovering Her Father, and
Yeah.
the whole. You know what? It happened. It happened in
I
your
know,
life.
but not like her. She got photographs, letters, journals. I didn't
You
get
had
that.
the three sisters at least.
I know, but I tried to get my father's records from the mental hospital, and they were destroyed. I think because when I went to my mother and said I want to have these,
Wow, what a story!
and when I asked my mother to sign for me, she said, and my mother, the little chief, said she's the Marlon Brando of Italian mothers.
I love it.
She went, "What if you find out something that makes you sicker than you already are?"
She said,
"Yeah, because
There you
for
go.
my mother, who was a very pragmatic, good girl, never, did anything wrong.
she's got you.
Yeah. And my father, for her, my father and I both I mean, if my mother could have kept me locked up, she would have,
Of course.
you know.
Mhm.
But when I was 40, my mother said something to me that I thought was so interesting. She said, I used to think it was only you. Then I found out it was everybody.
That's quite a
Wow.
saying, right?
Yeah.
Right. Did you have closure with your mother at the end?
Yes, because I took care of her.
Fabulous.
I took
you
care of
know?
my mother,
Mhm.
and my mother hadn't been mothered. So she
Wow.
she couldn't mother. I mean, she was, I mean,
Right. That makes sense.
She
Yeah.
was a complete caretaker and custodial and and that's why it was very
Mhm.
hard to go against my mother on certain levels, because she had sacrificed so much for her
Mhm.
children,
Of course.
But I
But
But
really,
she was the caretaker, but without the emotional attachment.
right,
Uh-huh.
because really, why this woman, I mean, everybody who knew her she was very beautiful, but nobody ever expected her to get married and have children.
Right. She was, the pictures were beautiful that
Yeah.
you put
Yeah,
up. You became
yeah.
her mother in the end.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
I
And
mothered
gave her
her.
the nurturing.
I
that
gave
she
her the
needed.
nurturing, and we had an amazing time.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
And I can tell you, like, taking care of your parent at the end of their life is the gift that keeps giving.
Mhm.
Because whenever you feel a little bit bad, you know that you gave them that great end of life.
Yep,
And not everybody can do it. You know,
absolutely.
I always say you have to be able,
Mhm.
with friends of mine, we did it with our mother who had Alzheimer's. You've got to be able to put your head on a pillow at the end of the day, not just with parents, with a partner too.
yeah, with anybody.
Mhm,
I mean,
yeah.
You know, with a partner too,
Yeah.
you at the
But
end
now,
of the day.
Yeah.
Yes.
but also at the beginning of life, tell us a little about Choopy.
oh,
Choopy Choo. It's
I
Choopy.
love those
We
photos.
love Choopy Choo. What a
Right.
personality, those eyes.
Right,
I know.
right.
It's an
So-
old soul.
so for all of you out there who don't know who
I wish we had a picture of Choopy right here. I wish
Well,
should have
we-
told you to bring one.
Well, we'll post a picture after. So Choopy is my great niece. She's my niece Tony's daughter. And before this girl was born, I felt a real connection to her. I
Yeah.
just felt like there was something about her coming that I knew. And then I went and met her, and we bonded right away. And she's like a child Audrey Hepburn. It's
Yeah.
like scary.
Yeah.
But she's also so like connected. She connects. And the thing that's very odd about her is that when you see pictures of her, she looks like a toddler, but she's a baby.
Wow.
So then when you
Uh-huh.
see her in person, she's only this big.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I thought she was older.
Older.
No,
Oh my
no,
goodness.
she's a baby,
But
baby.
Her
Oh.
eyes, Penny, are so old.
She's
It's
Yeah,
like,
she's got a
she's
soul.
old.
Yeah.
She's a child witch.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
She's a child
she's
witch.
an amazing child.
So I named her Choopy Choo
Mm-hmm.
after a Spanish lollipop.
I love that.
Yeah, and then I found out that the lollipop packaging was designed by Salvador Dali.
Oh,
So you know,
perfect.
it's all going on. Oh, I've got an itchy nose.
It's okay. We can scratch on
let's see.
camera.
Oh my God.
Okay, I was going to ask you,
Yeah.
how are you defining yourself at this point in your life?
Okay, so it's really interesting because here's the thing for everybody listening. I'm telling you, I have in one of my shows in New York Values, I say absolutely nothing happens between 20 and 27, and then you're grown up. 27 to 39 drags on like summer in the 4th grade. It's never over.
27
And nothing
49,
happens.
A long years.
Nothing happens. Then 39 to 50 lasts 3 weeks and everything happens. Then 50 to 60 lasts 4 days and even more happens. But if you have a rigorous inquiry into your own life, when you're 60, you get to start all over again,
Mhm.
like you're 20. Only this time you're raised by yourself. It's your own
You're
values.
so smart
I
now.
love
It is so
Yeah.
fabulous.
Yeah. So when I was 58, I started telling people I was 60, and I was in my
Mhm.
glory. Like, wow, me 60? Of course, because how many of my friends survived?
Right.
From
Some people didn't
30.
make it.
Yeah.
Most of my friends,
Yeah.
I lost over 300 friends
Oh my
to
goodness.
AIDS, and that's just people that I knew, not
Mhm.
people that I interacted with and audiences and stuff. So 60 was really rambunctious for me. I was like really high energy.
Mhm.
It was very, very, very like kind of teenage energy. And then when I got to be 68, I started to go, this is great, except this shit doesn't stop. So you don't stop aging. That's the problem. And it starts being like faster than a roller coaster. Now you're 70, and then 70, the energy changes completely, and it becomes like a lazy river, that you're on this lazy river. It's kind of like your 20s, you know, like you're like taking a little step back and like kind of looking at things a little bit, but it is really kind of pisses you off because life is so short, you know. I mean, then there's 80, you know. I have no idea what 80 is like, but I imagine that if I live to be 80, I mean, right now I'm thinking, wow, if I could be in my 80s, like Jonas Mekas, who lived to be 95, his 80s were his best decade, his best decade. Now, I have said that my 70s would be my most glamorous decade.
The glamorous decade.
It's my most glamorous decade.
I love it.
Yeah.
My most glamorous
Look at the
decade.
hair.
Yeah. And I haven't had any work done on me, but I'm not against it. I would do that. You know?
Oh yeah, I love this. I can do it on you. I can show you how to do it from behind. We could just we lift up. Somebody did that to me.
I know.
One time in a picture.
I love it.
Instant face.
People say to me, you can't get plastic surgeon. You're Penny Arcade. It's inauthentic. And I'm like,
don't even get me started.
I'm like, inauthentic. I'm not 20. You know,
Penny, it's whatever makes you when you go
Absolutely.
out there.
I know, but I mean,
Yeah,
if you think about the reality that all of these people in Hollywood, that's why I'm sickened by Madonna. I'm sickened
but
by
that's not what
Jennifer.
you're
No,
gonna
let
do
me
your
finish.
version.
Let me finish the sentence.
Yes.
I'm sickened by them because they lie to the public. They lie. And they say, "Oh no, this is a cream that I use."
Yeah.
No, this
So
is
that bullshit.
This
Yeah.
is
With
this
the
is my
scar down the cheek.
this is my jade roller, you know, and Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah,
and,
with the exactly.
and all of them, and like
agree.
all of them, and all those girls in their 20s are getting the ponytail lift, like Kendall Jenner, like
and the lips. Don't forget the lips.
yeah, you know. But I just think, you know, I said to somebody, I said, well, I've always been fascinated by plastic surgery right up to the point where you walk into the hospital.
Right.
Like I love everything about it right up to the point where you go in the hospital. So, I mean, I don't know whether I'll do it or not, you know, and also it's a financial consideration.
Right.
But I said to somebody, I said, well, my dear, you know, when your hem falls on your pants, don't you put your
fix
hem
it.
up?
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
put your hem
You
up.
I'm
tighten
all
it up.
for hemming up. Okay. and you know, I've gotten into this with people because it's about you feeling the best.
But it's none of
you.
anybody's friggin' business.
Thank you very much.
Exactly.
That's the real
Exactly.
bottom
That's
line.
right. It's
But
your
it-
business.
But it is people's business when Madonna goes on there and says she hasn't had
This is bullshit.
anything done,
Right.
or
Yeah.
Lopez or any of them. Look, you have my book.
I do.
Yes.
Of course I
Penny
do.
Arcades.
Yeah, I'm going to make you sign it too.
Yes.
Bad
It's all
reputation.
shiny. Bad reputation. People can get this book on
Amazon.
Amazon, which is
Or
where
you can
I got
go.
it from.
You can go to your bookstore and get it.
Right. And you've got some great pictures
Oh,
in your book.
yes.
Let's show
Show them.
everybody that.
Look at
That's why I brought
this.
it.
Is the original cast
I knew it when you
of Bitch Dyke Fag Hag Whore. Look at
Love
them.
it.
It's so funny.
I love
We-
the pictures in the book.
Did you see the video of Bitch Dyke Fag Hag Whore backstage?
I didn't see that. I
No,
did see the actual show, but
yeah,
I
but
didn't see.
but you should.
Yeah.
We just put it up on Patreon.
It's on Patreon.
I mean, this is so fabulous. I mean, it's a look back over so much
oh,
of your
Tim,
life.
you'll love
Isn't
the
this?
book. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel when you look at this?
Well,
do you recognize your contributions
What,
to
it
society
came
and all
from
that
them
you've
like
done?
that.
Yeah.
I think they didn't have a new version
No,
or
it's
something,
just
or what is it? It's
plastic.
it had
No,
sticky stuff on it.
It's this book is 3 of my scripts: Bad
Mhm,
Reputation, Bitch Like Fag Hag Whore, and La Miseria,
mhm.
which all 3 shows. It's difficult to do those shows now because of the
Mhm.
language police.
Right.
And La Miseria, which is about Italian American homophobia and racism
Mhm.
in the working class. And so it's really fun that there are all those scripts in there and
I
stuff.
I
But
want to point out
Mhm.
something about you that I think people need to know. Okay. So many people that make films or write plays or do spoken language, they have studied.
right.
You freaking just did it? Where does it come from?
Well, I'm Southern Italian, so there's a storytelling
Gene.
gene. Well, but it's also I grew up listening to stories.
Part of the culture.
It's part of the culture, and my mother also loved stories. My mother, when we got along, she would say, "Come sit down. This is such a good story." So I've always loved stories, and in the early 80s, when I started making my own performance work, it was when I came back to New York in 81, and everything was possible. I didn't want to write plays, so I found I could just do whatever I wanted, and the audience always goes where you go. The audience
Love it.
The audience goes where you go, and my relationship has always been with the general public here in America and all over the world. And when we were doing the Facebook Live from March of 2020 till August of 2020, we would have like 1,000 people tuning in.
I love the comments. They were from everywhere in the world.
Everywhere in the world,
affected that many people.
Because that audience, the audience is really with you, and they can be with you, and it's really a remarkable relationship to have. I mean, I used to give my phone number out to the entire audience.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Now I give my email out.
Right.
But I give my email. I don't give like some special email.
Right.
The thing about you've always made yourself accessible, which is admirable. Speaking of people tuning in,
once again, viewer watching, If These Walls Could Talk, with your hosts, Wendy Stuart and Tim Moss, our amazing guest, the one and only PANGEA Arcade.
I want to read
Evan Lawrence says,
Check your inbox.
Evan Lawrence says, I just looked up my gay mentor I've known since I was 16 and found out he's passed in the last year. I am thankful you made me look him up, Penny.
That's so
thank you, Evan.
Suki Weston says,
Yay, Suki.
Penny, you are political and use humor to get your message across. Your politics are essential.
Thank you, Suki. I love Suki.
Robert Owen says, hi, Penny Arcade. Oh, check your inbox when you get a chance. Hi, Wendy and Tim.
Cool.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's great to, it's all there is interaction and connection and coalition. And I think this is what we're missing in the world, is the coalition. And also, for younger people, I'm always, like I said it to, was it you? No, I said it to Elizabeth Gray. Don't try to grow up so fast. You know what I mean? People say, you're so young, Penny. How do you do it? Taking a real long time growing up.
Absolutely.
Taking a real long time.
I'm all for late blooming over here.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again so very much. This has just been fascinating.
Fascinating conversation.
Now, how can people find out more about you?
Well, you can write me you can email me directly, mspennyarcade@gmail.com. And you can go on my Patreon, which is by donation, Dignity for All. Starts at $2, and everybody has the same access no matter how much they contribute. And you can go to my website, which is pennyarcade.tv, and look at stuff there. But on the Patreon, there's like over 800 videos.
Amazing body of
And
work.
also there's the whole Lower East Side biography project, where you can really have a one-on-one with amazing people who we've interviewed, and I'm not in it. I know you might be sick of me by now.
And your poetry is also on your Patreon.
Yes. And then, just write me if you want to. I love to write anybody who writes me. Anybody within this hearing distance, we were meant to meet.
Yes.
I connect
there you
you.
go.
MS pennyarcade@gmail. MS like feminism, like we're hoping.
Like Ms. It's Ms.
So in conclusion, is there anything that you would like to say to anyone that may be watching?
Well, anybody out there who's watching, just try to be generous to somebody who's down and out. Winter's coming, Thanksgiving's coming. I mean, there is no net out there. There's no net. So really, make a lot of people would like to have a spiritual practice, that doesn't include going to Tulum and doing yoga, with some yummy mummies, try to know that, you are a human being and your brothers and sisters are suffering. There you go. And the other thing is, whatever you have in your heart was put there for you to develop, and do not be afraid. I was afraid. I didn't develop everything I wanted to develop because I thought, oh, that's too much. No, I'm not good enough for that. You know, don't be that way. Take it from me. Do it. Be with yourself.
That is some wonderful, wonderful words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom
from the one and only Penny Arcade. Thank you so much.
And thank you everybody for tuning in.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. I'm not sure where.
Okay, so I can make that